Welcome to Iceland, an island with a landscape so diverse it feels like you're visiting a different planet. With a population of less than 500,000 people, much of Iceland remains untouched and is the perfect place for adventurers at heart to explore. To truly experience the wonders of Iceland, there's no better way than embarking on a journey along the Ring Road, which circumnavigates the entire island, providing access to some of its most breathtaking sights without the need for backtracking. Our 10-day trip began with a flight from Dublin, marking our 40th country visited for our year-long trip around the world. We opted for an 8-day road trip around the Ring Road, followed by 2 days to explore the capital city of Reykjavik. If you're looking to do something similar on a budget, this video is for you. I will go through our full itinerary, budget, and what you need to know to have a great time in Iceland. Before diving into our itinerary, here are a few essential tips for navigating Iceland. The best way to explore Iceland is by renting a vehicle. Options include cars, camper vans, or, like us, an all-wheel vehicle, where we opted to have a pop-up tent on top for added convenience and flexibility so that we could change our plans along the route since we did not have to book additional stays. The cost was $794 for the vehicle, plus $1,095 for the tent and camping gear. This included a full camping set, including sleeping bags, a cook stove, dishes, a table and chairs, and what was supposed to include a box for Wi-Fi, except that the staff forgot to put it in the vehicle. We also wanted all-wheel drive, which brings me to the next thing you need to know. While the Ring Road offers smooth paved stretches, if you veer off of it, be prepared for gravel roads and what are called F-roads, which are rough, unpaved routes that often lead inland and may involve river crossings. Off-roading is illegal, so stick to designated campsites. By camping on top of the Jeep, we did not have to book any stays, but we did have to pay for campgrounds, which cost us $150 total, which was on average $20 a night for 2 people. The Icelandic krona is the country's currency, but credit cards are widely accepted all around the island. However, it's still advisable to carry some cash for things like campground showers. Eating at a restaurant is expensive, think like $20 for a bowl of soup. So to save some money, our first stop after landing at the airport and picking up our rental car was to go to the grocery store, where we got a week's worth of food for $125, and then just treated ourselves to a few meals along the way. Also, I will do my best with Icelandic pronunciation, but since I already know that I will fall short, I ask for grace in the comments. For our itinerary on day 1, we flew in, picked up our rental car, and went grocery shopping before we drove past Reykjavik, continuing east along the Ring Road to our first campsite to set ourselves up to be able to get a good start on the Ring Road the next day. This part of the Ring Road closest to Reykjavik overlaps with a popular route called the Golden Circle, which is a great option if you have less time to explore the island. We set up our camp and went to bed early so that we would be ready for the next long day. For day 2, to beat the crowds, we packed up our campsite up early and started the day at Hrunalaug, which is a natural hot spring with a Viking-looking hut. This privately owned land used to be a free-for-all to visit, but with its growing popularity, it now costs 2,500 Icelandic krona or $17 USD per person to visit, and they limit the amount of people to about 12 to 15 to avoid overcrowding. We were the first people there right at 8 a.m. and had a blissful 15 minutes of it all to ourselves before more people started to arrive. The pool was originally built by a farmer in the 1890s to do laundry and take baths in. Today, it's the perfect place for tourists like ourselves to soak, like we did, for about 45 minutes, with the max time allowed being an hour and 30 minutes. This stop also has a shower on site that you can rinse off after. Next, we continued along the road to Gullfoss, Iceland's largest waterfall, which gives the golden circle its name. Gullfoss meaning waterfall of gold, Gull meaning gold, and Foss meaning waterfall in Icelandic. For lunch, we continued onto Friðheimar. If you're going to spend money at one restaurant on the island, we recommend this one be it. It is a family-run greenhouse that uses geothermal energy from the island to grow tons of tomatoes and has a restaurant with every item on the menu featuring tomatoes that they grow in-house, including an iced tomato latte, which I tried and was quite good. We got the all-you-can-eat soup and bread bar that includes coffee and ate as much as we possibly could for $25 per person, and you get to sit and eat surrounded by the tomato plants. For the afternoon, we went up into the highlands of Landmannalaugar. This is where we ended up on some F-roads, but it was totally worth it once we made it to the campsite. The parking lot here is divided by a small river crossing, which we saw many people do, but did not try it ourselves. There was plenty of parking without having to cross it, but note that the campsite is across the river. We wish we had a whole day or two to dedicate to this area, but we didn't arrive until early afternoon. We did a 6.8-mile loop hike through a lava field and up onto the mountain where you can see a wide array of colors from the different minerals on the mountain. It was a gorgeous hike and totally underrated. And afterwards, we relaxed in the hot spring that's back at the campground. We got a waterfall there, and a waterfall there. Leaving this area, we tried to take a shortcut to our campsite for the night, but ran into a river crossing. So we had to turn around and take the long way out and back around to the ring road. Again, it might have been wise for us just to camp that night at Landmannalaugar, but with all the midge flies that were swarming the campsite, it really turned us away. And although we didn't get to our campsite until really late, we were back on the ring road so that we could get an early start the next day to continue on. Day 3 started by driving to Seljalandsfoss, which is only a short hike from the parking lot to the stunning waterfall that you can walk behind. Further down the road and tucked away along Iceland's dramatic coastline is a quick stop to see a 9th century ancient cliffside settlement. The buildings were carefully crafted using traditional Icelandic building techniques, with walls made from stacked stone and turf roofs designed to blend seamlessly with the natural landscape. Next stop was Skogafoss, one of Iceland's most iconic and majestic waterfalls. Standing at 60 meters or 197 feet tall, Skogafoss is a sight to behold. Fed by the Skoga River, the waterfall cascades over the edge of a cliff, sending plumes of mist into the air, creating rainbows in the sunlight. Legend has it that a treasure chest is hidden behind the waterfall, left behind by a Viking settler. Many have searched for the chest over the years, but it remains elusive. Next to Skogafoss is a lesser known and often overlooked waterfall, Kvernufoss. The waterfall is fed by the Kverna River and drops gracefully over a rocky cliff, creating a picturesque scene that feels like something out of a fairy tale. The hike to Kvernufoss is relatively short and easy through a canyon, making it accessible to travelers of all ages and fitness levels. Continuing along the ring road on the south coast, our next stop was to the famous Sólheimasandur plane wreck, which is the remains of a U.S. Navy DC-3 aircraft that crash-landed on this remote beach in 1973. Miraculously, all the passengers survived, but the wreckage has since become an eerie symbol of Iceland's unforgiving landscape. The walk out is deceitfully long, with nothing to look at except the flatness and black rock. There is also a shuttle bus that runs every 30 minutes. It takes about 10 minutes each way and costs about $21 USD per person for a round trip, so we just decided to walk. Next along the way, we stopped for a little picnic stop and to hike up to the famous picture spot where the rocks perfectly frame the landscape behind it. Next, we continued on to the Dyrhólaey viewpoint, renowned for its dramatic cliffs with the arch-shaped rock formation that juts out into the sea. And this is also one of the best places on the island to watch puffin colonies up close. It was hard for us to leave this area with so much to see, but to end our day, we camped in the coastal town of Vik. This campground has a really nice facility, and we cooked out and rested after a long day. Day 4 started by backtracking slightly outside of Vik to Reynisfjara beach, which we saved for sunrise so that we could beat the crowds, as this is one of the most popular stops on the southern coast. It's known for its striking black sand, towering basalt columns, and powerful waves. Legend has it these columns were once trolls who turned to stone by the rising sun. But Reynisfjara's beauty comes with a word of caution. The powerful waves and unpredictable currents along this coastline can be dangerous, and visitors are advised to exercise caution due to what are called sneaker waves, and stay back at all times. As we continued, we passed through the Elfron moss field, a surreal landscape unlike any other found on Earth. Stretching as far as the eye can see, this lava field, which was formed during a massive volcanic eruption in the 18th century, is blanketed in a thick layer of green moss. Here it was dry due to the lack of rain when we visited, but it still creates a mesmerizing contrast against the stark black volcanic rock beneath. It's very important, though, to not walk on the moss, as it takes years to grow. Next was a canyon carved by the glacial waters of a river over time. This majestic canyon offers a glimpse into the geological forces that have shaped Iceland's rugged terrain. Continuing down to the southeast, we hiked about a mile out to Svartifoss, which is set apart from other waterfalls in Iceland with its incredible backdrop of basalt columns, which resemble a magnificent organ pipe formation. A few minutes more down the road is Svínafeljajökull Glacier, which is a short walk from the parking lot. and is the outlet glacier of Vatnajökull, the largest ice cap in Europe. As temperatures rise and fall, the glaciers shift and change, carving out new crevasses and ice formations with each passing year. It is a place to definitely use caution while exploring. Next was one of the most popular stops on the south coast, Diamond Beach. As you step onto the black sand shores of Diamond Beach, you will be greeted by a breathtaking sight. Countless icebergs sculpted by nature, dotting the coastline like glistening jewels strewn across the sand. These icebergs have been broken off in the nearby lagoon and are carried out to sea by currents from being washed ashore. This also turns out to be a great spot to watch seals as the tide rolls in. We ended day 4 at the Vestrahorn mountain. According to Icelandic folklore, Vestrahorn is said to be inhabited by hidden elves and spirits, who are said to protect the mountain and its surrounding landscape. Whether or not you believe in these ancient tales, there's no denying the mystical allure of the Vestrahorn. Not only is there a stunning reflective beach here, but there's also a lighthouse, a coffee shop, an abandoned Viking movie set, and a campground where we spent the night. We started day 5 at sunrise so that we could catch the reflective beach at the perfect time, and we're the only people out there. We then went to the Viking village where, again, since we were there nice and early, we were the only people. And then before we left this area, we went to the Viking cafe where we had Icelandic waffles called vafla, which come in the shape of hearts, before we hit the road to explore the east coast of Iceland for the day. By driving about 20 minutes off of the ring road to the port town of Seyðisfjörður, famous for its little blue church and its popularity as a stop for cruise ships. We scored big with a 2-for-1 lunch special here at the Nordic restaurant, where we were able to try Icelandic lamb and freshly caught cod for the price of one plate. This did turn out to be a long driving day, but we made it to the northeastern part of the island by around 5 p.m., where we made it to the Studlagil Canyon, which was a short hike out to this stunning spot. Although we were there when the water was high and unfortunately pretty brown, this spot is known for its vibrant blue river, which winds its way through the basalt canyons, creating a striking contrast. We continued along to a campground on the northern part of the island for the night. It turned out to be a super nice campground with a restaurant and grassy rolling hills. Day 6 started at Dentifoss, Europe's most powerful waterfall, with a height of 44 meters or 144 feet and a width of 110 meters or 330 feet. For our next stop of the day, we ventured into the heart of an unworldly landscape, stopping at the Kraflavite crater, which was formed during a volcanic eruption in the 18th century. This lake's coloration is caused by the presence of minerals and gases seeping up from deep within the earth. This crater is also steeped in history and folklore, with tales of hidden treasures and mythical creatures that are said to dwell within its depths. The only creatures present while we were there were the midge flies, which like to hang around our heads and follow us everywhere. Since we knew we would be traveling to the northern part of Iceland where not as many travelers make it to, we decided to skip the Blue Lagoon and go instead to the Mývatn baths to save on costs and be fighting less crowds. The baths are fed by a combination of hot spring water and cool groundwater. and are rich in silica, sulfur, and other beneficial minerals. The cost was $98 per person, and after we soaked for a few hours, we enjoyed some treats at the cafe. Make sure you ask for your 1 free refill of coffee and your free refill of soup here. These things matter in Iceland. Next, we went to Goðafoss, which translates to Waterfall of the Gods. Legend has it that Goðafoss earned its name during its conversion of Iceland to Christianity in the year 1000 AD. The chieftain threw his statues of the Norse gods into the waterfall, thus symbolizing the country's conversion to Christianity. We continued along the north coast and stopped at a true hidden gem. Right before you get to the town of Akureyri is a hot spring that's on top of a waterfall that overlooks the ocean and the town across the bay. This spot is simply called Foss, or Waterfall, since it doesn't really have a name. It is off of Route 83 down a gravel road. It was one of our single favorite spots of the whole trip. And for the most part, we had it to ourselves because not as many people know about this stop. It was so hard to leave the hot spring, but next we drove through the town of Akureyri, which has the heart-shaped red traffic lights. And then we ventured a little ways off of the ring road to camp that night in the town of Hofsós, which is one of the oldest trading ports in northern Iceland, dating back to the 16th century. On our way there, we passed by some beautiful river braids to our left on Route 76. The reason that we camped so far up here was so that we could start day 7 bright and early at Garðarkirkja, the oldest church in Iceland. Over the centuries, the church has weathered storms, earthquakes, and other challenges, yet it remains a beacon of hope and inspiration for generations of Icelanders. Our next stop of the day was another dip into a hot spring at Fosslag. This one is also a little off of the beaten path next to a river which turns into a waterfall. This was also one of our favorite stops, with a short walk out from the parking lot, which has a $5 honesty box for parking. This was another situation where we got lucky with a window of time to have the hot spring to ourselves at around 10 a.m. in the morning. But once the crowds started to show up, we decided it was time to leave to make room for more tourists, as it didn't take long for this spot to feel very overcrowded. So we continued along the northwestern coast of Iceland, where we went to a beautiful canyon that's been carved over a millennia by the river and waterfall that run through it. Next, we continued along to a historical site for the afternoon, which is believed to be the homestead of Eirík the Red, the legendary Norse explorer who is credited with establishing the first Norse settlement in Greenland. The Longhouse, reconstructed on its original site, offers a glimpse into the daily life of Viking settlers. We found the museum, however, to be overpriced, charging us $50 to walk into the sod reconstructed Longhouse. If I had to redo it, I would have just opted to view it from the outside or skip it altogether. To end our day, we drove an hour and a half to our campsite for the night in the town of Grundarfjörður on the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. Here we grabbed some soup in the town, which was the cheapest thing that we could find. For day 8, we stopped at the stunning Kirkjufell. Before continuing on to a beautiful church on top of a hill that has a long road leading up to it. Next, we drove to the end of the Snæfellsnes Peninsula to see the Orange Lighthouse, dating back to the late 19th or early 20th century. The coastline here was also beautiful to see and was a great stop before continuing along the southern part of the Snæfellsnes Peninsula to the famous Black Church. It's one of the few remaining Black churches in Iceland and is considered a cultural and architectural landmark. Our very last stop on the Ring Road was Thingvellir, a UNESCO World Heritage Site located in southwestern Iceland, about 25 miles from Reykjavik. Thingvellir sits on a rift valley created by the separation of North American and Eurasian tectonic plates. It was now time for us to organize and repack the Jeep we'd been living out of for over a week. This was not a proud moment as it had gotten pretty out of hand, and so here we are just trying to get our life in order in the middle of the parking lot. We turned our vehicle in and opted to use public transportation, which was not convenient but did save us some money. Day 9, we woke up in Reykjavik and explored the compact city center, which is easily explored by foot and is home to an array of shops, restaurants, cafes, and the cultural attractions. We visited one of Reykjavik's most iconic landmarks. Hallgrímskirkja is a towering church with a striking design inspired by Iceland's basalt lava flows. We also did a self-guided food tour, trying the famous Icelandic hot dogs at the Byron's Best To stand, which was topped with crispy fried onions, raw onions, ketchup, sweet mustard, and remoulade. We also had skyr, which is a traditional Icelandic dairy product that resembles yogurt but is technically a type of soft cheese. We also tried some amazing pastries, including the twisted donut and the famous cinnamon buns at Bruthingo, as well as lobster soup at the Sea Baron by the picturesque harbor. At Cafe Loki, we tried the rye bread ice cream with a dark rye Icelandic bread that was traditionally baked in pots or steamed underground using the geothermal heat. Everything you read online will tell you to try the fermented shark. However, this traditional Icelandic delicacy is not for the faint at heart. We heard it leaves a really bad taste in your mouth for up to an hour, so we decided to pass on that one. Day 10 was time for us to pack our bags and fly back to the US, which we had left a year ago. We caught local buses to try to save money to get back to the airport. And there you have it, how we spent 10 days in Iceland. But now let's look at our total costs for the trip. Our biggest expense was the pop-up tent and camping gear that we rented for $1,095 in place of renting stays along the Ring Road as an additional add-on package through the company, where we rented the Jeep for $794. Food was the next largest expense at $620, which included our initial grocery run and more groceries picked up along the way, as well as all the food that we ate at restaurants. Gas is a large cost to consider if you are driving the full Ring Road, as it can be as much as $10 a gallon, costing us a total of $578. After dropping off our rental car, we spent 3 nights in an Airbnb in Reykjavik for $400. For the cost to go to the different hot springs across the island, including the Mývatn nature bath, our total was $166. To take the local transportation around Reykjavik and back and forth from the airport, it cost us $154. And finally, every campsite has a fee per person, and a lot of the parking lots at the popular stops also have fees, which came out to $150 total for us. So our total, not including flights, for 10 days in Iceland came out to $3,957 when we visited in mid-August. I hope this guide gave you some insight as you plan your next trip to Iceland. If you found this to be helpful, please consider subscribing for more travel tips and inspiration. Please let us know in the comments which country guide you'd love to explore next. And thanks for watching.